Live on YouTube with my old guest, renewed guest in 2020. And I'm just going to press the record. Yay. Okay. So welcome to Stories of Awakening with Mary Jo here, located in beautiful South Island, New Zealand, Hamner Springs, and bringing you this, I put it down as the 23rd video interview with my lovely guest who I actually am welcoming back. We did a video last year and didn't get around to editing that one. And what we decided, myself and Anita, is we're in 2021, so we may as well create a whole new interview. So much has shifted, so much has changed, I'm sure, for us individually and collectively, that we can kind of bring ourselves up to date with. And that felt more exciting and interesting. So I'd like to welcome my wonderful guest, Anita, and just a little bit, I'd like to share a little bit about our connection. So I met Anita at my place 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I don't know.
2 years ago, 2019.
Yeah, 2019, beautiful. And Anita had a quantum healing hypnosis session with me. And one of the most striking things in that session was, she was deep in her consciousness, subconscious, higher self, was that communication of being the universal Akash. So we've called this recording Universal Akash, Traveling into the Unknown. So I'm pretty excited with that title that just kind of popped out before we started the video. And I'm looking forward to hearing from Anita and all the updates on what's unfolded since then for you, and move into this more collective, unique, individual, personal and collective conversation I feel we're going to have. And I feel like we're both ready for a bigger conversation, if that makes sense. That's my sense in my heart, which is probably why we're going live with this today. So welcome, Anita. Can you just share a little bit about where you're from and a little bit of your, a little bit about you, your background?
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me back. And I've been really looking forward to this morning. Can
I pause you one moment?
Yes.
Because I forget this every time. Whoever's watching this in the now, in the future, welcome so much. Sometimes I'm so focused on creating the interview that I forget to actually connect with the viewers. So hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us and adding your energies and co-creation to this conversation. Okay, over to you, Anita.
Thank you. So like you, I live in the beautiful South Island. I'm probably not quite 2 hours drive away from you. I'm in North Canterbury, up by there, close to the Southern Alps. A little bit about me. I actually sort of was thinking about this morning, and it's a little bit like, how do I describe myself? And I consider myself as a Jill of all trades. So when I awakened, I literally was opened up to many, many different openings where I can help people, and it just blew me away what came through. The awakening for me was just full on. It was like a steam train coming at me, and as exciting as that was, it has also had its drawbacks and been very overwhelming at times as well. And so one of the things I did come to do was to come and see you 2 years ago for some clarity, because I was at that stage in a place where things weren't perhaps going as well as we would like it to. And this happens to all of us. We have the exhilaration, things are going really great, and then all of a sudden we hit a speed bump. We have to start looking at ourselves. We have to start really looking deep within, and that's hard. We all shy away from doing that. It is the difficult part, but if we can get through these difficult parts, we can really move ahead and move forward again. And when you look back, you think, oh, no way I want to go there again. But hey, I've learned so much from that process, from going through all that pain, shedding all those tears, going right deep into my heart and bringing everything out. And so for me, the journey has been fast-tracked. I literally was thrown in the deep end, and I was fast-tracked and pushed very hard. And it's taken me a long time to work through a lot of this. So I awakened in 2012, like many people who did. There is an implant within us that is placed within us by spirit. It's in our DNA, and it's a trigger, and it triggers us off, and it opens us up to our spiritual connections. And this was very common. In 2012, we had harmonic convergence, and at harmonic convergence, the decision was made by humanity to move forward in the ascension process. So those who were ready and waiting.
I thought the harmonic convergence was in 1989, wasn't there? 1987.
There was one in 2012 where the decision to move forward was made by humanity. So it's not held down here on this planet, it's held beyond in the spiritual realms. And that decision in 2012 pushed the decision for humanity to move forward in the ascension process. So we were in the fourth grand cycle. We're now in the fifth grand cycle. Had we decided, or humanity decided, not to push forward, everything would have just been set back. So the world would have been set back to start again into another grand cycle.
Beautiful. Can I pause you just to pick up on a few things you've already said?
Sorry if I say too much all in one go.
No. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. But I just want to kind of unpack it a bit.
Yes.
So you've mentioned things like grand cycles. You've mentioned things like implant. You've mentioned.
Sorry. Yeah.
You've mentioned things like being kind of steamboat through your awakening. So I'll just pause you there. For you, what is awakening? What does it mean? This idea of awakening.
Awakening for me is the awareness that there is far more to us than what we have been aware of. We were asleep. You are asleep. There are people who've gone through the slow awakening process, those who've come before, for myself, who've gone and done it the slow way, slowly move forward. But for many of us, we triggered off in 2012. And we awoken to the fact that there is just more to us than living our everyday lives, that that spirit are around us, that we are immortal, that we do have past lives and have had pasts, and that there's just far more to us than that we could ever have really possibly imagined. That we are more than a human body, functioning in a human body, living our day-to-day lives, and often traumatic day-to-day lives, busy day-to-day lives, where we're just not awake to anything else other than our daily life.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And just to add another thing into that, so that awakening, at least this was my experience. You said 2012, so you had an experience, you had something epic, we'll just call it, in 2012, that really stretched you out of that dream state or that sleep state, or, just the way I see it is kind of like we're focused into this linear path of experience, and then we get awakened to go, oh, hang on, you're so much more than this. You're a quantum being or a multidimensional being, or there's so much more. And as you said, past lives is actually a part of that. And there's more, and there's more, and there's more. And so it's constantly evolving and growing. However, when you live a life that's very linear, it takes a lot to kind of draw into that linearity, isn't it? That restrictive, limited consciousness. So in a way, the big challenge is to release the limitations, release the traumas, release where we've packed ourselves and restricted ourselves in and thought and believed that's who we were. So it's releasing, it's unpacking those densities and energies and beliefs and attitudes and even memories and all of that, so that we can start unpacking it and seeing it from the perspective of our higher, truer nature. And of course, that's ever evolving and expanding. At least that's been my experience. And I had an experience in 2010. And as you said, and many people may relate to this, is you get an expanded experience. Some people, it may be breath work. I know a lot of people are doing breath work these days. Kundalini, mine felt like a Kundalini experience. But really, mine just came from a heart opening. And I was on a very high, really different perception of self for a few weeks. And then, just like you mentioned, it was like deep dive into the density, into the separation, that which created the limited version of Mary Jo had to be unpacked. And that looked like shame, guilt, judgment, self-esteem issues, you know, all of these kinds. So can you talk a little bit more maybe to how you found that journey of unpacking, or even actually even maybe go back to what was the experience that you had in 2012 that really took you out of where you're chucking away in your life and then all of a sudden something happened where you're like, whoa, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, you're right. I was chugging along in my life. I had been perhaps a little spiritual without being aware of it. I always had an awareness in even my own home I lived in as a child, every house we had, of something watching me. There was always a room that I was scared of, and it was the upstairs part of this house. We've been here for 24 years. And my family would tell you, if we went and watched TV upstairs, which I never watch TV these days, I would always be down those stairs. It was always just something, I could feel it. And then things started going bump in my house. Things started flying off ledges, and my grandmother had been incredibly spiritual, so I wasn't not knowing about this kind of thing, but I didn't want to know about it. I shut it out. It frightened me. And eventually I got a very amazing man to come in and clear my house, and he told me there were two people. One of them was a Victorian lady, and the other one was my sister who passed, and it was actually my sister who was creating the havoc. But I started getting clairvoyant images, and they were incredibly powerful and strong clairvoyant images. And one night I'm asleep and I see this crack of what looks like lightning, and I start seeing these visions. I saw this woman with her mouth as an oval and all these heads with these oval mouths, and she had a scroll, and she was an old-fashioned place, and I'm like, oh my God, dead people, I'm seeing dead people. I panicked. Then I saw this huge vision of this, now realizing most beautiful electric blue cat, and I just started screaming for something called Blue Screams Protectors, just shut it down. And I actually shut my clairvoyance down completely. And much now to my sort of, why did you do that? But it was fear. I was frightened. I didn't know what was happening to me. I saw this woman was in my house, and that was okay. I saw her, and I sort of understood on a level. And so that was my awakening, which absolutely terrified the living daylights out of me. And so slowly, clairaudience came in. I went to a workshop that just blew me wide open. So it blew me into light language, it blew me into the Akash, it blew me into the off-planet stuff. It really pushed me right out there and right into the healing. And I know when I went to this workshop, I said, all I want to do is walk through my door, because it was advertised, you will open the door, walk through the door. Don't want to be a healer. I just want to walk through this door. And came out with my own healing modalities, being able to speak, tone, and to be able to not so much read, but translate through my guides' light language, which is actually painfully slow and I don't bother doing. To have my own healing modality, to diving into past life and being able to go off planet and bring in past life, because it's still just going into the Akashic records. I just have the authority, and it is actually an authority to go that far and bring that depth of reading in. And so that was that was probably my true awakening. My first one was the dip your toes in the water, and then spirit let me shut everything down, because I wasn't really ready for it in 2012. And so 4 years ago, my true awakening happened. And since then, it's been like being on a freight train, just hasn't stopped.
You opened the door, you walked in.
I walked through that door. I got what I asked for, and far more than I ever expected. Yeah. And I wouldn't change it. For even with everything I've been through, particularly in the last 2 years, I still wouldn't change it.
Just for those people that I'm sure so many can relate, that have been really being activated, or as you talked about this, what you call the imprint. Maybe explain a little bit more about that. This imprint, or is it like a timing thing?
It's like a trigger. We have these triggers imprinted within us. Even like when we meet people, there's a trigger. So you met your husband.
Yeah.
And within each of you, there was a trigger of recognition. And when you meet, this trigger goes off. And you will follow whatever path you're meant to. For some people, it is only a short path. And it's because it's only meant to be a short path, even though we grieve and we are very upset at losing a relationship, or it causes us what we feel is grief. It's a path of either learning or karmic balancing. And
just in my own relationship, I feel like there's been many crossroads.
Yes,
And we had to
definitely.
really reevaluate
Yeah.
if we were going to keep going together and you know, and take it to the next level or not, or go separate ways.
Yes, I've been through that many times. And I think we do. And so, like, even like meeting you or connecting with you, a lot of it is pre-planned. So we will have maybe more than one choice. So when I first wanted QHHT, I actually connected with somebody who was much closer. She was much closer for me. And each time I had a booking, she cancelled on me. And it was like, oh, I've got to babysit my grandchildren and things. And then I decided that this person really wasn't professional. She wasn't for me. And so I started seeking out again, and I found you. So I had many pathways I could have taken, and there would have been other people I could have perhaps found pathways with.
And now here we are having a conversation 2 years
exactly
later.
And so it was absolutely meant to be, totally meant to be, because your experience with me was a very changing experience as well for me. It brought through many changes for me. And that's why we see practitioners, of course, because we bring through changes for other people, and other people bring changes through for us, because who heals the healer? The healer generally can't use their own energies to heal themselves if they're, like myself, an intuitive energy healer. I trying to bring the energies through, they're too closely aligned with my own physicality that I can't do it. So I have to go see other people and have them do amazing healings for me.
Even though, just to clarify for anybody who's not familiar with the quantum healing hypnosis, really I see myself as a facilitator, and that it's really you going into your own psyche, subconscious, greater awareness, and that it is happening within you on your multidimensional levels, if you like, or awarenesses. And I'm just there as a support. But I absolutely agree that we all carry a energy signature. So there is that agreement of energy signature that can support that level of awareness, guidance, whatever it is, to support the best co-creative experience, I would say.
Yes. Yes, well, I facilitate the energies. The physicality actually heals itself. The same as when you're doing the quantum hypnosis therapy. It's providing the frequencies, the information, because even the conversations are a frequency of healing.
Absolutely. So let's talk about let's jump to what you mentioned about these cycles. So you said we're in the 5th cycle. So for anyone who's not familiar with it, actually, I'll just go back as well and say one thing as well. And I do remember talking to you about this last year, but I'll just bring it into this one as well. I remember one of the strongest things you brought into me, because there's always an exchange, right? You know, so one of the things you brought to me, I'd heard bits and pieces, but I hadn't kind of made anything definitive about it, which is always a good thing. But one of the things you strongly embodied and knew, which was very obvious, is this idea of the old souls, or the original souls of Earth, and the starseeds. So speak to that and weave that into these cycles if you can.
Okay. So we have to go back to projects. So Earth is a project. So every evolution of a race of peoples is a project. So we have Earth, and we have souls who are created for Earth. So we consider them native human beings. And then you have volunteers who are a much, much smaller proportion of the population. So the Earth's population is made up of approximately 80% of native human population and 20% of starseed population. So what I mean by starseed, and I really don't like the term too much, but it is a very common term. I prefer the term volunteer. So you volunteer to come onto this planet because you're already a very ancient old soul. If you're a starseed, you're very ancient, you're very old, you've lived for, I don't think I could even, in our terms, bring through the amount of life that you've had. And so you have all that innate wisdom, but you have to come here in disguise, basically, because if you came in with all of your knowledges right at the beginning, it would be too soon, too early. Humanity, or any form, like the Pleiades was the last, one of the Pleiadian planets, I should say. It has its own name. Was the last one in this universe to have actually ascended into what we can call the fifth dimension, or the Christ consciousness, which is just a change of energy. And so they were actually the major proponent for pushing this particular project ahead. And so the human physicality, the human soul was created for this planet, and we come here to help. So it takes generally around normally five or six grand cycles for the ascension process to go through. And when you have a grand cycle, it's normally approximately 26,000 years. And if humanity cannot agree to ascend, then the whole planet, everything gets set back to the very, very beginning. And it becomes another part of the project, and it starts again. So some volunteers will stay, some will just go back to where they came from. And so we had 4 grand cycles, and in number 4, the decision was made by humanity to move forward in the ascension process. So that brings through changes. In 2012, karma was dropped for anyone that is born after that time. So the children born after 2012 do not carry karma, which relieves such a heavy burden. Now, those who are not born after that time, of course, agreed to carry on with their karma. And so there are many people who have very difficult, traumatic and hard lives, and karma is one of the reasons that they do. This really puts a very heavy burden on people, because you've lived everything. You've lived good lives, bad lives, you've had people perpetrate against you, you've done it against them. You've had to learn everything. And as starseeds, we have, like all humanity, we have our mind erased when we come down here. So you have no memories of any past, but you might have deja vu. Now we are awakening. These things are now coming through. People are awakening. They're having visions of past lives, and they're moving through past lives. So we are in this 4th grand cycle was a big experiment. So there is just, and a lot of people who are into the planetary stuff will tell you, we literally crowded up there. They are really watching this very closely, because the full free will choice and duality came into the actual picture in the last grand cycle. And this makes it a much, much tougher grand cycle. Yeah. So this is the first time that full duality has actually ever been brought into any project anywhere. So you have beings off this universe who are not only watching up there, but you have observers down on this planet, living on this planet and experiencing this. So they take it back to their own universes. And this has been really successful. This has actually pushed us into the ascension process a lot faster. So instead of doing maybe another 1 or 2 grand cycles, we did 4, and we now push forward. And there is no going back. Once we start pushing forward in the ascension process, there's no change. We don't go back, and that's why so many people triggered off in around 2012. And so the process is still a slow process. It's not a matter of ascending. For us, those of us who are volunteers, it's not a matter of ascending. We're already ascended beings. We've been there, done that, and we've helped on projects many times. For many people, this is not the first time they've been involved in this. This is why they will have deep knowledges of other planets as well as their own home origins, where they come from. So this is it's very experimental. It's been very well watched. They up there have made as many mistakes as we make down here, or learning processes. Perhaps not mistakes. They're probably looking and going tis. But they've had to learn as well, because this has never been done before. So there wasn't just full duality down here. There was also full duality above there, which caused a few issues up there as well. So they were allowed, because all their guides on either side of what we were, of high vibration or low vibration, don't particularly like the term dark and light, because it is just vibrational frequency, and they are learning just as much as we are learning down here, and they teach just as much as we teach. So
can I just intervene a little bit and just put this to you as another way to verbiage and just see what you do.
I'm struggling to put it carefully.
So one of the ways it's been shared with me to understand this bigger sense of why we might choose such challenging lives and such duality and such deep dive into density and forgetfulness and all the rest of it, is that on some bigger level of ourselves ultimately, or of consciousness, that there was a stuckness in the energy or the momentum of expression experience, and that this ultimately is about consciousness expansion. Exactly. And that we're really on the ground in the deepest pockets of energy, you could say, where it got really stuck and wasn't moving on behalf of all consciousness and, you know, universes and galaxies and all the rest of it. And so, you know, and so we had to get into the thick of it to eventually kind of unpack this energy through all these experiences and lifetimes and forgiveness and whatever revelation and awareness is in this very tight kind of web, so to speak. And that, yeah, and now the energy is moving again. So as we were saying, we're actually, it's beginning to open up and move and flow, and it's like, relief on behalf of all creation.
It is moving, and it's moving at a very fast pace, and it's changing. And it's not just changing the planet we live on, it's changing us. So we are changing, our DNA is changing. Yeah, so there has been a lot of changes, and it is an experiment, and it's been so far a very successful experiment. And so we are moving forward, we are moving the changes. There are many of us who've been around for a long time who are actually moving off, and we now have the young ones coming in, and they are far more awakened than what we have ever been and will be, and they are the new movement, and they are still starseeds, and they're still coming in to help humanity, and eventually humanity are going to be doing this for themselves as well. They will be awakening themselves and going through that process of enlightenment. But the information I have is it is at least 4,000 years to go yet. We've got a long way to go. It's not a short journey.
Yeah. Well, that's the completion, you know, kind of.
It is the completion, yes. Yeah.
So in the grand context of it all, it's, you know, and even saying for 1,000 years, like, how relevant is that even concept of time and years going to be in the not too distant future?
Very different. I find for myself even now, time is not what it once was.
Exactly.
It's very different.
Yeah.
Often in the morning, I don't want to wake. I know it sounds silly, and I think, slow down. So this short period of time feels like a half an hour, and it does. And I think, oh my gosh, was it only 10 minutes? It feels like a half an hour. I felt like I got that half an hour extra lying in bed, being very lazy, of course. And time becomes meaningless. It's not so important. It does really change.
More into our quantum or multi.
In the quantum energies, yes.
Living from that heart portal.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, you know, these 4 cycles that you've talked about, have you been given information through your channel and translation, or just what you've heard from others of what these cycles, because I heard the terms Lemuria, which I feel very resonant with, Atlantis, and I haven't really heard any other terms so much.
No, you won't do.
Yeah.
No, because Lemuria and Atlantis are only this grand cycle. Right. And Lemuria is the world, and Atlantis was the world, and Lemuria was the original time of the originals that came in. So if you told you came in at Lemurian times, you came in earlier than the Atlanteans. And so Atlantis was the world. It really just wasn't a place. It was the whole world, and it was a name for the world as far as I know. And Lemuria was the name for the world, and they were Lemurian times. And I feel that often they were different peoples from different places, and it was the setting up time of getting things set up. But their technology was far too advanced for humanity. Far too advanced. Yeah, I often feel the Atlantis. Yeah, their technology would have been totally dangerous in the hands of human beings, who would have not really understand the true value and meaning of how to use them. It's something, technology has been something very slowly fed out.
Yeah. So yeah, one way that I've kind of learned to perceive all that as well is, and again, just let me know if this resonates, is that the Atlantean, if we go into the duality, you're speaking about the Atlantean really represented more that masculine energy, that more mental, masculine kind of energy, the science, the technology.
Yes.
And the Lemurian was more the feminine,
yes.
the intuition, where women were really revered and, you know, connected to the star sisters and, you know, and really in living more in harmony with the self and nature and all of that kind of stuff. So it was kind of the two poles.
Yes.
And that we're bringing these two together in this time within us. And that's why we've had many lives potentially, or experiences, to bring those energies in greater harmony and support of one another as they can rise together.
Definitely. Well, we definitely in the last few years have started to bring the feminine energy back. It's definitely been the masculine for a very, very long time. And it is not about feminine now taking over. It's actually, as you say, it's about bringing that balance back in and bringing that harmony in between male and female energies. And we still have a wee way to go on that one, but it is rising, and women are coming into their own, and they are growing and appreciating themselves and realizing they're not lesser than anyone else, that they have the right to be strong in their femininity and to embrace their femininity and be exactly who they, you know, should be. That we're not just a man's housewife doing the housework and being paid less, and we're learning to revere ourselves and really appreciate ourselves for who we are.
Yeah. And you know, one thing I find that I'm have been discovering for myself, and extend that out to people who come to my retreats and different things, is you know, sometimes I find myself just kind of sharing as women, okay, we proved ourselves to be as good as men, you know, because, you know, like in terms of tapping into that more masculine, because we all have masculine and feminine energy. So in terms of that strive and drive and, you know, dedication or whatever it is that might be exemplified in you know, some kind of external success or whatever it is maybe, but we've actually forgot about how to truly be the feminine, you know. And so connecting back into what does it even mean to embrace that feminine energy, because oftentimes even the ideas we have about what that is actually very masculine. It's not, you know, so it's like we're having to relearn, rediscover, re-educate ourselves. What does it even mean to truly be empowered in our feminine energy, to value those qualities, you know, as something that is empowering and something to be revered and to really love about ourselves and appreciate about ourselves. Whereas we learned really for a lot of it is to dismiss it or to devalue. So that's a kind of an interesting journey, you know. It's like, what is it to even embrace the feminine? You know, the gentleness, the kindness, compassion, connectivity, you know, these qualities that we can just kind of, you know, we have dismissed, or, you know, culturally and in so many different ways, as you said, living more in that masculine, that we just learn to dismiss it. And so we've been pushing part of ourselves away and just going back to the body. Of course, that's what shows up in a lot of the challenges that people have, and especially women, or especially around reproductive and you know, or sensuality and things like that has been repressed and suppressed. So that's looking to come up so that we can really embody more of that true feminine sensual energy, really, which is the connective energy, which is the creational energy, and so empowering, so empowering. But it does take to be grounded and have that support of the masculine. I know myself, I often like talking to my inner masculine, inner feminine, and often I'm like, masculine part of me, I know you taught me how to survive in this world and function and get by, but can you just chill out and just step back and allow more of the feminine to come through and, you know, express herself? And, you know, yes, we love you. And, you know, because that masculine is about, you know, like I see it like a tree, you know, rooted in the earth and just feeling, holding that feminine so that that energy within us can flow and dance and create and express and, you know, have a form, have a structure, have a direction, if you like, have something to kind of lean into from that beautiful masculine, divine masculine. How have you been finding that journey for yourself?
Not easy. Absolutely not easy. Oh dear, I think sometimes the older you are, a lot harder it is to actually sort of take yourself back to that place. It's the journey of the spiritual person is not for the faint-hearted, is it?
No, it's, no. I often find myself saying that as well. It's not for the faint-hearted. It is friggin' intense. I mean, yeah.
It's intense.
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel like it's as intense for me as it was, but when I had my awakening in 2010, yeah, I mean, definitely a few very intense years. I'm not saying I don't have intense moments or hours or days, but it was, you know, yeah, it was full on. And just exactly, this is not for the faint-hearted. There has to be a courageous soul in there, you know, to really keep saying yes and keep showing up in this body and keep facing or being with those denser energies or challenges or whatever it is, fears, you know, and keep tapping into something greater, because that's really what it is. It's tapping into that bigger, higher self, truer self, to hold, to be the container, to be the holder, space holder for the parts of us that, you know, have really felt shamed or blamed or held such shame and blame, you know, because of these past lives and because of, you know, situations that happened in other aspects of our psyche, consciousness, soul. And so what we're doing, at least it's been my experience, is anything that hasn't been resolved, we'll say, or balanced karmically, you know, to bring it that way, is they've had to come up. They've had to come up very strongly and physically. And then I, as the one that's in this life and tapping into that more higher self-awareness, has had to be the one to step forward, stay steady, you know, and that's practical, showing up every day and breathing and grounding. And for me, it's yoga and meditation and a lot of what I share in my retreats, to be grounded enough in this body and to be that center point, so to speak, to be with those really uncomfortable feelings, emotions, energies, until they could come to resolution, I want to say, within my beingness and within those aspects of my soul. So it's a fascinating journey. I remember writing a quote somewhere years ago. Now this is years ago. Something like, you know, it was something like, I'm so busy keeping up with myself, I don't have time to keep up with anyone else, you know.
And it is very consuming. So last year I had to drop this baggage in this life I was carrying in, and this took me months. And so I feel it in the heart as pain, and I feel it in the throat as blockage, and bring it up. And I would spend days, and I would go in and listen to meditation music, and tears would be pouring down my face. Just, I don't know how many days I sobbed it out. And this was really hard process. It was really looking deep at my life and asking forgiveness as well. It's not all about getting forgiveness. You know, I've transgressed as well. I'm not the perfect human. None of us are. So that was stage one of the journey. And then I went through a lot of spiritual stuff that I had to also move through. I had been going through a lot of spiritual issues, let's put it that way. I'm not going to go into the depths of it. And so I went through an energy change, which literally dragged me out of a dark place into standing in the sunshine. But I still had issues, and recently had a healing, and it's now about bringing the fear up. So I'm literally full of fear. And the practitioner who worked with me said, normally I see a fear and we can target on it. She said, I just see across the board fear. And so again, it's in the heart and it's in the throat, and it's painful and it hurts. And this is just me, because I'm very, very energetically sensitive. And so I'm working through this at the moment, and I'll wake up, my throat's clogged, and I'll go into my heart and I'll find out, what do I need? I'm lucky that I can find out what I need to shift on, and I will just say what I need to say, and I'll feel it come up and move. And it's like, I thought I got through it last year, and then it's all again. So we're just a work in progress, and I don't think it ever really stops, because I think once this level comes up, there'll be another level, not perhaps of shifting, but there will another level I have to shift into, you have to shift into, and it still will be about realization of who we are, and changing our energies and our perceptions of ourselves. So going through this, I went through and learned another healing modality, which completely changed my whole knowledges, understandings, and perceptions of actually who and what we are. And that really was, it was life-changing. So we're not quite what we think we are. We think we are a soul, and we think we are a higher self-consciousness and a body, but we're not. We're actually a symbiotic relationship. So we sit in the driver's seat. So you're at the front of the bus, Mary drives it, and you have the primary experience. But we have guardians, and they actually connect into us through our chakra systems, loan us their energies, and they have a secondary experience. So they still experience the lifetimes with us. And so we have 3 guardians that connect in to us. One who connects into our third eye and our crown, and another one who connects into our pineal and what is known as the ring of life. So when you're activated, the ring of life activates up, and it's the halo that Jesus has, or was depicted, the angels have and is depicted. And we have another one that goes from throat down to base, and that one is one that connects us into earth. So we are quite a symbiotic relationship, and this is quite a revelation. And so with this healing modality, you actually work with healing them as well, because they are as affected by what goes on in our lives as we are. Mm-hmm. So the transformation and the learning, and it never stops. And as this person who was teaching this, he was learning all this. And of course, we have now, we don't call it the higher self, we call it the conscious self. So the conscious self is you. That is that part of you that is not here. So when we come into the physicality, only a portion of your energies come here. You're not fully within the body. The physicality won't take that much energy. So in my lifetime, 20% of my energies are actually in my physicality, and that's what I work with. If you're a person who needs more energy in your lifetime, you might be not quite as sedentary in my lifetime as I am. You might need more energy. Some people will bring in even less energies. And then the other part of you still functions beyond this realm on another level. So it's that has, to me, is just blown my whole world wide open even again. My perceptions of who I was, my soul, which is still me, and my soul, myself, is still in my physicality, and I'm connected, of course, right into all of the chakras, is still functioning here. But we have this amazing guidance backup system who help us get through our daily lives as well. Then we're just totally unaware of them. We're totally unaware, and that's the way it should be. They blend in seamlessly with us. We're not aware of them, but they loan us a portion of their energies, and they are connected into us at all times to help us navigate this lifetime.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, and I really do get what you're saying. And even though I use some of these terms, soul, higher self, deep down,
yeah,
I know they're not that relevant, and sometimes I'll say it doesn't really matter what words we use. However, it is an awareness, it is an experience. and they're just words we use. And because of the linear mind, we tend to put things in this kind of hierarchy kind of status, and really it's going deeper in that you connect into a broader, expanded level of awareness of yourself. So it's really not a higher self as such. But for the linear mind, it's just a way, it's a stepping stone, isn't it? Until we get to that next level. Yeah, and also because we've lived on this planet from our separate identity, that ego, that more limited consciousness, and we really believe this is who I am, and I'm limited, and I'm human, and going along my journey, and I have to work hard for money and pay the bills and survive and blah, blah, blah. It's like the self-esteem was so crippled. So it's like, who am I? I'm a nobody, you know. So this symbiotic relationship is like, you know, and the first time I probably heard that, and I didn't get it when I heard them talk about, but it was Abraham Hicks, you know, talking about that we are on the leading edge. And I, you know, first it was like, okay, that's a nice concept idea. Don't really get it, but I like everything else you're saying. And then as the years have gone on, as I've integrated more and more of my own true self or consciousness, I get it. I get it. We are on the leading edge, you know, definitely. In this co-creative symbiotic experience. And so it's like we're embodying more and more of that acceptance more than anything of the true self, and allowing the false self or the created self to kind of dissipate, not in a dishonoring way, because I do feel that's what's got us here. So there's, you know, it's with great honor and great compassion and great respect for all that understanding, insight, wisdom of the duality, the different perspectives, the different lives of all these different energy dynamics, if you like, so that now we can work with them in a way, in a more, I want to go sophisticated way, you know, a knowingness way, you know, a depth to it on this plane, through this body and beyond.
Yes, it truly is far more. I mean, what I've given you is just a very simplistic view of what really happens. It's far more in depth than we can ever understand, that we are and do exist on many levels. And it's really interesting because we're just not living this life. Every part of us that we have ever been still exists on another level and still lives on another level. It's beyond my ability of comprehension to actually explain it properly. Someone once said to me, oh, you know, karma is not important. It's not what I do kind of thing anymore. I don't consider it the important part of the healing process. But what people don't understand is when you have a karmic issue that needs to be dealt with, that lifetime is actually playing over. And it's like, you know, the old records where it used to hit a blip on the record and just, and this is what karma actually is. It's hit that blip, and until it actually is sorted out, it will keep on going. So it's still alive, that lifetime and all those emotions and everything that was traumatic, because when we deal with karma, it's only trauma we're dealing with. We're not dealing with good lifetimes. They get nicely closed off and we move along from them. It is actually still playing out as a reality in your, for better word, in your soul. So it's still playing out as a reality. It's still alive. It hasn't moved on and it hasn't closed. And so we are still functioning. So we're not just functioning on this level down here, but because we have no memory of who we are, we're actually functioning on other levels as well. And we can be multi-functioning on multi levels. But I think I won't go too far into that either, because that goes beyond my comprehension sometimes as well. But there are people here whose soul is split into more than one soul split, and they're actually, their soul is living more than one lifetime on this plane of existence as well. That does happen as well.
I recollect it because, one thing I forgot to say at the beginning, of course, is that you do these readings, higher self readings, and
yes,
did you call them Starseed readings? I can't remember. And I had a couple from you, and you did, that was part of what was shared in one of those readings, I remember, which is still kind of it was like, okay, cool.
Oh, that's right. It's true. That's right. I've forgotten. You actually have got another soul split living in another part of the world, haven't you?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm not
so
aware. I don't feel like I have any particular connection or
no,
awareness
no,
of
you won't
that.
do. No, and I don't think you would ever be allowed to have that connection. Because you're living two separate lives. You're the only person I've ever read for that's come through for.
Oh,
It's
wow.
not that common, but what it does is it accelerates the growth. You're having two totally different experiences, and I can't remember how much information they gave you about the other person. But you're living two totally different experiences at the same time. So when you go back, you've got not just your experience where you've learned and grown, but you've got another experience where you've been learning and growing as well. So that really pushes your soul forward exponentially. For all I say that we're here to help people, we're also here to help grow and learn ourselves, because we are put into situations that we will never have been put into in other places. This experiment for such has been very exciting for not just those of us who are in soul beyond here. I won't say down here, because life can be challenging at best, but it's not just exciting for those of us who are working, it's exciting for the universe. It's exciting for other universes, because it's not been done before. And so it brings through great growth, learning and changes, not just for us, but it really spreads well beyond us and well beyond our universe. It's very exciting, really.
Yeah. And very challenging to comprehend through the linear mind.
Yeah. Even for me, I mean, I get downloaded information and that kind of thing, and even sometimes it's this beyond what I can cope with and what I can understand as well. But slowly, as time's gone, it's like my truth for today is exactly that. It's only my truth for today. My truth for tomorrow might be completely different. My truth of yesterday was different. And that is that our truths are always changing. So what my truths were 2 or 3 years ago are not what I see as my truths now. And in 5 years' time, my truths will have changed again. My understandings, my perceptions will have changed completely. And that's what being fluid. And that's one of the things that is really important for us when we do start the spiritual life or the spiritual changes, to be fluid and to go with the change and not think, oh, why did you lie to me back then? Well, hey, we actually told you what you needed to know then, and what you could understand and what you could relate to. But now you've come this far and your understanding, your perceptions have grown. So we give you this. So we really didn't lie to you. We gave you what you needed to know in a way that you could be comfortable with. And this happens to all of us. And we might completely change our whole perceptions in a few years' time and look back and think, oh, that no longer relates, or I no longer use that. That's not really of any great importance in my life. And that's being fluid. And it's really important to be fluid with this process, to try not to fight it too much, because we all fight it a bit. We all fight the changes a wee bit and get a little bit mired.
That's kind of it's been the nature of the ego, isn't it? But to survive, you know,
Yes.
so it's like a habit. And
Yes.
the way I see it is like a habit of the old consciousness. And in myself, I just notice it bumps up with the new consciousness, where you really,
Yes.
you know, you can know it, and it's like, yeah, fluid, adapt, flexible. You know, it's so important, because the changes are happening so rapidly, and the more we can go with it, and the more we can embrace it and be with whatever is present in our life right now, that's ours to be with, to look at, to explore, to whatever, accept, acknowledge, forgive, you know, all of these dynamics, the easier it will be on the body. The less suffering they have to be, the less stress, the less suffering, the more the energies can work themselves out and move, so that we can bring in more of this expanded frequencies. However, and I see it in my own human self, and I'm sure you'll relate, is this, you know, this habit of this, I'll call it my older consciousness, or I could call it ego or inner child or another part of my soul or aspect or whatever. But, you know, I just call it older consciousness before this 2012 shift over, and especially 2020, is that part that is wanting to pull back, shy away, not change, actually, not make the changes, you know, want to stick to what it knows, is wanting to look for proof. Give me the proof. Show me how this is all going to go. I want my predictable life back. Whereas the new consciousness, and I've been talking a lot about this, it isn't predictable.
No,
you know, it's evolutionary. And there is no truth to hang on to, you know.
No.
And the mind, the ego wants, what is the truth? And even out in the world, and maybe we can get onto that, you know, out in the world, and I see it in myself, exploring, because it is important to look at things and explore things. And, you know, I trust as well what comes into my awareness to look at, to see how it may cause a reaction in myself. So, for example, child trafficking, abuse, you know, all this stuff that's going on in the world. And be with whatever that energy is it might bring upon me. Am I resistant? Am I angry? How is it making me feeling? Do I want to fight? You know what I mean? And take responsibility for those energies. And at the same time, it is a kind of an interesting dynamic to be aware of so many storylines or narratives playing out in the bigger arena of Earth right now, and so many different perceptions of truth and belief systems and attitudes, and honoring the human, because when you awaken, you start to realize we're so friggin' powerful that we are projecting our perceptual awarenesses and beliefs, etc., expectations onto this reality projector canvas, and to honor each other, each person's, you know. And for me, you know, Jesus did say it best when he said, as you believe it, it is given unto you. So I'm being reminded of that again, you know, that not to discount other people's truths or realities, that they are, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Find it within myself, you know, that, okay, to keep stepping back. And it's a challenge because sometimes I'm in there, you know, but to honor, you know, that different people have different perspectives of what freedom is.
There are definitely.
You know, how are you navigating that? How are you finding that within your own?
One of the things I've found is that one of the things I stopped doing was buying into any form of news. So I do not listen to news. I don't watch news. Yeah. I hear from other people what goes around in the world, because none of us gain anything by getting upset, by getting angry. And what I learned a long time ago is that all these things can happen in the world. And the only way I can make any changes is by bringing love into this world, by bringing loving energies and healing energies. And I do routinely ask for healing energies to be brought down into the planet, to be absorbed by everything, every living entity of energy on this planet, to try and heal. Because I can't personally do anything about child trafficking. I'd love to be able to do it, but there are people out there who do, of course. I can't do anything about the murders that happen in this world. I can't do anything about what's happening now. What I can do is keep myself grounded and centered, and to keep myself well and healthy, and to help where I can and when I can, and to be of assistance in an energetic way by bringing health and well-being, or if I hear of people that are unwell, sending healing energies, sending loving energies, compassion. Maybe my guides out, if I feel that they can possibly help, I'll ask them, can you go help? But to become frustrated by what's happening in this world, become frustrated by what I can't change, to me is pointless. I can't do anything about these things unless I actually literally want to get up, get on an airplane, which you can't do, go over there and try and sort it out. What I do understand is that every person that is living in their life today has made very detailed choices about what they're going to experience in this lifetime. So before you come into a lifetime, over there, you will sit down, you will review previous lifetimes, you'll look at what lessons you need to learn in this lifetime. You'll actually look at all those people that you're going to be closely related to, and some that you're going to be less related to. You'll choose what you're going to look like, whether you're male, whether you're female, and you will be given choices. And you will choose the experiences you're going to have. So people who have experienced child trafficking, very likely at some stage you've been a slave of somebody's, of some sort. You've been enslaved, because child trafficking, of course, is an enslavement. I worked with a modality of removing things out of the auric body, and I have not come across anybody yet who hasn't had slave collars, slave chains, chains, sometimes chains and balls removed out of their auric body, weighing them down. So I take the view, and I don't think it's a callous view. I just take the view that I'll change what I can, and I will respect the fact that I can't change some things in this world, that some things have to be experienced whether we like it or not. Does that make sense to you? I mean, some people might say, oh, she's an ostrich and she sticks her head in the sand. But I don't believe by upsetting myself and feeling frustrated or angry about what goes on in this world actually helps anybody at all. And certainly doesn't help me.
Exactly. And also just to really honor those people whose mission or soul agreement is to be in action, and understanding that we can always be in action from love.
Yes. And give our love and healing.
Rather than anger or reaction.
Yes. Yeah. So, and often these tragedies bring through some really, really amazing things. So like many years ago, my sister was in a car accident. She was killed, and she was the driver, and she caused the accident. And the person she plowed into at high speed was left with some very, very major health problems. I mean, he nearly died. And I read in the papers some years later that he had actually devised a program for people with serious, severe head injuries to learn to function again. So out of that awful tragedy came something really important. And what we need to look at is all these things that happen. So we take the earthquakes, because you know about the earthquakes. The earthquakes were very, very powerful here in Canterbury. It shook up our whole world in many different ways, and everybody was affected in some way. And every person that died in that earthquake put up their hands and said, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that to help teach. And so what did it do? It brought the farmy army out. People looked after each other, and we had communities where people were bringing food and clothing and bedding and water, and everybody pulled together. So from tragedy comes learning, comes growth, comes change. And that's how I feel about all tragedies that exist in the world. It is a path of learning, of growth, of coming together. The Second World War was the same. I mean, look what happened in the Second World War. It was a very awful experience, 5 years of it. And I had a past life. When I came to you, I saw that past life where I had died in a Spitfire. I'd been shot, and I'd gone down over the sea in a Spitfire. But you think of how people came together. You know, people came together collectively to help. You had the underground. People came together. People put their lives on the line to help save other people. You had a lot of community things that went on in England where people, you know, got together and looked after each other, and they grew gardens and they fed the nation, and women went to work. And, you know, from tragedy will always come something special, whether it's a community, sense of community. And actually the World War II literally opened up the whole world. This is actually when our world opened up and we became far more global and far less insular. We had penicillin come from that time.
A lot of volunteers came then in the 60s.
Yeah.
To bring those frequencies of love and
exactly. Togetherness. Yeah. So it brought through radical change. So adversity brings change, whether we like it. None of us like adversity. I don't like adversity. I don't particularly like the situation we're in at the moment, but hey, there's a greater reason, whether we like it or not. Our beautiful Earth has been given a bit of a break. We don't say, I mean, I'm on the flight path of planes here. We have them going over regularly overseas or over the other side of the island, and we've not got these pollutants out in our air at the moment. We've not got those dirty cruise boats in our seas killing off, you know, plant life and sea life, and putting their dirty pollutants in, not only to the sea but into our airs. Mother Earth is getting a really, really good break from us at the moment. We're not abusing her as much as we do, and so from that there's a positive, and so if we can always try and put a positive spin onto what's happening in the world and not try and buy into the fear that is being engendered and pushed, because there's a lot of fear mongering about a lot of many different things. And this happens a lot of the time, and so this is where we really have to dig deep into our spiritual side and understand that everything that happens for a reason, whether we like it or not, whether it forces us to make changes in our lives and that kind of thing, whether it means that we can't travel to see our loved ones at the moment, but you know, when we do get to see them, just think how much more amazing and wonderful that reunion will be when you've had that break of time from them, and it will pass. And I know that up there's a bigger picture. There's a reason for it, and this won't stop until they're ready to let it stop. And then when that bigger picture, when we've fulfilled what we have to fulfill, then that will stop.
Which is part of the awakening, right? You know, it is creating the momentum. As you said, the traveling, the less focus on the external world, because people can't move around, is the calling inward to connect with oneself and to deepen oneself in simply getting to know oneself again and have that deeper connection. And when you talked about, you know, not being in contact with loved ones, you know, it was really that sense of, you know, we can have all our dynamics, you know, especially with people, especially family and close friends. And so it's kind of like giving us the time to kind of come back in, actually connect with yourself without falling into those patterns of communication or whatever, the default conversations or expectations, and actually cultivate something deeper within. So I really felt the strengthening of when we do communicate with loved ones, there'll be a stronger centeredness in each person to themselves and their truth, and be able to kind of bring that into the relationship and into the appreciation and
definitely.
You know, simple things, hugs, smiles, all these a touch, you know, that we have touch, you know, all these beautiful five senses, and the gift of being in the body that we've taken for granted. We've, you know, we've turned it into a complete and utter unjoyful survival, burdensome experience. And now, you know, this opportunity of awakening is like embodying more of our true essence, or accepting more of our true self, and going, oh, I don't need to be in those shackles. You use the idea of the shackles, that slave kind of consciousness, if you like, even though I'm grateful that it got me to here, but we're taking off the shackles, so to speak, and saying we can actually create a beautiful life and really appreciate this embodiment, touch, taste, smell, hear, and sound. Wow, how amazing to interact with this outer environment, but without disconnecting from the inner environment.
Definitely. We have become very experience orientated, and having experience after experience, as you say. Personally, for me, I loved lockdown. I didn't do anything. I had all these things I was going to do. I'd sit out and meditate for hours, and just no traffic on the road. And I'd hear, because I live rurally, but at the moment I can hear cars just going, because I'm just off the main highway now. And it was quiet when we first came out here. And to be able to just actually take that time to center back into myself, I loved every minute. I was at home for 6 weeks, and I loved every minute of that 6 weeks of just easing through life and not having to rush off to work or make appointments or do this or do that or be here or be there. I just loved being able to center into myself and enjoy nature. And we were lucky, we had beautiful weather, so we had a time just of great peace and quiet, and I loved every minute of it. And maybe it's a mandatory thing that the world stops for once a month every year, and we just recenter ourselves and reground ourselves. I mean, I know it's not going to happen, but it would be lovely if we could just recenter ourselves and just be what we are. Switch off all the TVs. Don't have TVs going. Just be. And but that's that takes time for people to actually want that, and for that to be a part of their lives.
Exactly. And I'm going to throw something out there that some people may not agree with necessarily, but in my awareness, and just going back to the energetics and into that bigger sense, that bigger awareness, is that in a way from that bigger picture, and it's kind of going back to what you said, it'll be over when it's over, when it's done its job, so to speak. So if we look at what's really happening, it has had a little mission. Okay, you throw this into humanity to allow for this, and to allow for the awakening, to allow for a deeper readiness or opportunity, even if the ego, the mind isn't ready, to just sit and be. And what I consider, when you say you're sitting out there in the sun, just being, just meditating, how many people are still unwilling to do that? And what if those who are still in lockdown, because I'm very aware in Europe and Ireland.
Yes, true, they are.
They're still in lockdown. It's very different for us in New Zealand, even now Auckland again. What if, and of course, this is a generalization, it's not going to be across the board, but what if that more extended time period is to give those beautiful souls the opportunity to really let go of the need to be busy again, and to surrender more and more into the opportunity, to have those experiences of just being, and no pressure, and just letting go, and that inner fight, eventually surrendering more and more, and moving through those layers of resistance, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I know somebody who lives in one of the countries that's in lockdown, and she works from home, and she has gone from working her daily day, which was a long day, to now 20 hours out of 24 hours. So for her, it's actually gone the other way. So there are some people who have done this because this is their life, and I think sometimes perhaps the other side of life might be just a bit too scary for them, but it's actually having to be yourself and appreciate yourself, and to be able to look in the mirror and say, hey, this is me, I love me just the way I am. Doesn't matter how I look, this is me. I chose to be me, and I honor that choice. This is my body, and I honor the choice, and my body might not always behave or be as well as I might want it, and I do my best to look after it, but this is my body, and I chose to experience this particular physical body, but I also chose to experience this spiritual experience as well. And so for some people, it's actually pushed them into the other way, and I think sometimes that's perhaps a bit of fear in there, and they're actually working even longer to compensate because they can't cope with that empty time. They don't know what to do with it because their lives have been so regimented, so structured, that they actually don't know what to do with that quiet time. Whereas for me, call me the ultimate sloth, I loved it.
Yeah. So I just want to touch into something else as well, which I think is so important, is the trauma. We talked about crisis and the challenges and everything, and bringing about a lot of positivity, just as what you spoke to, but also recognizing that, a lot of the why the person doesn't want, why any of us find it so challenging initially to be with theirself, is because of those underlying traumas or experiences or emotions that have not been dealt with, that have not been felt fully, that have been pushed away for, as we say in Ireland, a rainy day, but been pushed away until the moment where it was time to bring them forward. And again, you could see it as that is another reason or opportunity that we're in. It's like, okay, you need to pause now. As you said, you've gathered your experiences, as challenging as they may be in this spectrum of duality. And now it's time to actually discover how to be still again, so that you can be with these experiences without running from them, because they can feel like they're monsters in the suitcase, right, or the backpack. And so the busy is also not to feel and to keep busy and distracted. So that's the challenge as well. And with technology, that can be a distraction as well.
Definitely.
rather than go out and just be, okay, there's an uncomfortable feeling, I'm feeling judged, I'm feeling not good enough, I'm feeling, because I'm not working, there's going to be no money in the bank, I'm not going to survive, you know, and really tapping into those deep fear experiences that we all have to face, really, to transcend them and to realize we can, the only way we can know that we're more powerful than them, and I don't always love that word power, but to know that we're the consciousness beyond them and that we can create something different, we don't need to be controlled by them, is to face them and be with them and keep breathing and keep allowing that bigger or that truer sense of who we truly are beyond those fears to face it head on, to be with it head on, and then realize, oh, that's not who I am. These are just experiences. These are just emotions. And if we take it down even further, these are just energies in motion that are moving through my psyche, that are looking for acknowledgement, forgiveness, recognition, a cuddle, love, kindness, gentleness, attentiveness, presence, where they've never felt that before. And then they can neutralize back into that 0 point field, or, you know, scalar wave technology, to just be part of the consciousness again, and to create again something new.
Definitely. Yeah, I don't think I can add any more to that. I think you covered it all, to be honest. Like, there's nothing there to add. It's just, finding that place, that quiet place within, and it takes time. And even I don't always find that quiet place within. It's not an everyday thing, because there are things that happen from day to day that can tilt the scales and change how you feel, and you can get up in the morning and feel totally different to what you did the day before. But to waste time,
that's been a bit like what you said earlier, of being so open to whatever's present in the moment, you know, just being so evolutionary, and that literally every day we can feel so different and have different experiences, and to get that, I want to say, lucid with it, and okay with that that's okay, rather than the mind come in, I'm not meant to feel this way, I should be feeling this way, or this is what should be happen, and trying to control and micromanage the outer reality and the inner reality, actually. So it's that part that needs to in a way surrender and start learning to trust again, to trust that there is a bigger picture, and that we're part of something greater, and we're not alone. And, you know, going to these conversations, stories of awakening, that's what this is about, to share our stories, to share our challenges, to share our insights and more expansive awarenesses of realities, so that we can really feel that, oh yeah, we're in this, you know, we're having to go through it individually, but there is definitely a collective reality going on, and that there's many resonant souls, and we can relate to each other. We don't have to agree with each other necessarily. No. I'll always ask, does it resonate? Because I'm, even in what I'm saying, I'm bouncing it off you. Do you share this resonance? I'm open to you saying something that'll make me kind of maybe expand my thought a little bit and look at it a slightly different way. And some of that stuff that you said earlier about the guides, connected into the chakras, I find that really interesting and a bit new and different, specifically how you said that. So I wouldn't mind re-listening to that again. So, you know, we are in this beautiful co-creative, collaborative opportunity now, you know, that we're unpacking this, unfolding this again, uniquely, personally, really, and collectively as well. And we are on this journey, and why not be on it?
Yes, exactly. Well, why not? Why? Because you know what, you'll be doing it again next time. If you don't get there this time, you'll be back here to do it again. So why not get that part out of your or get through that part, so then the next lifetime, it's even more. That's if you've even got another lifetime to go, because those of us who are the old starseeds, we are phasing out. So really anywhere between 1 and 4 lifetimes. Some people have no lifetimes left to go. They'll have completed what they need to in this lifetime. And I just know that in the next lifetimes, for people when they come in, one, they're not going to have all this karma. It's all going to be closed and gone, so they haven't got a lot of trauma they're carrying. It's like having a backpack full of rocks, really. You're humping them around on your back, slowly tossing them out one by one as you go through it. But spiritually, you're going to be blown wide open even further. There'll be people who are working through the spiritual process who are going to be major spiritual leaders come the next lifetime. And what we're doing is we're preparing the way for those who are not awakened. And I live with a person who's not awakened. And interesting part was that they told me that there was a really good reason why my husband, whose name is Paul, was put with me. And one, he grounds me. So he's a really grounded man. He's the gardener, and we've got 3 acres, and he does all the gardening. He's a very grounded person. So part of the reason I'm with him is he grounds me, because I can be very hairy-fairy and off with the fairies at best. And although I do ground myself, you know, yeah, no, but I do ground myself when I think about it, but I try to think about it and do it daily. But he's very grounding, but I'm here to teach him, because I've been told that he has either 1 or 2 more lifetimes to go, and his next lifetime he's going to be woken up spiritually, his wake up time. And they say that if he's successful in his next lifetime, he's up there as a guide. He doesn't actually have to come back. And so to me, so that's why he's been part of the reason. We've had other things to deal with. We've had karmic stuff to go through and things like that. But that's part of the reason why we've been put together, because we balance off each other. He grounds me, and I give him the hairy-fairy stuff. And he's been amazing. He really copes, because, you know, I sing and speak light language, and he just copes with it all, and it's fine. Whereas I've got a couple of friends, the minute they got into spirituality, the marriages just went down the drain very fast. Their partners just couldn't cope. It was the spooky stuff, and it's one friend, you know, you're being, well, both of them, you're being corrupt, and you're doing things and demonic things and things you shouldn't be doing, and it's just fear and a total lack of understanding. And it is what it is. That was what was meant to happen. You know, they came to that point in their life that they couldn't stay with that person, because that person would never be understanding. They were not at that place, so they have to move on and take their spiritual life and their spiritual awakening with them, and find another way. But yeah, it's just incredible what's going to happen. The spiritual movement, for those who come back, is just going to be amazing. The next time they come back, it will be incredible. It will be.
So you are speaking like a more universal Akash of the earth. So any of the words on that term, universal Akash? Because I think that was one of the things, that definitely was said in your quantum session, that you were a universal Akash. So you really draw from the universal Akash. You have that broader perspective.
It's interesting. When I first awakened and I had a friend who was into the planetary stuff, and, you know, we're talking, and she starts talking about Lyra, and I'm going, no, it's Lyra, without even knowing it. It's Lyra. She says, no, take it from me. It's Lyra. It's not pronounced Lyra. It is just one of the planets. And then I started downloading information on planets, and I just thought everyone could do this, you know. When I learned to do things, like when I went into the Akashic records, so if I do it for a past life, I can bring through 5 or 6 pages. Well, you know how long my readings are. And it brings them through not just who you were, but these days it goes before birth. You expect how you felt before birth, how you felt while mum was carrying you, what birth was like, how you felt, whatever traumas might have happened at that time. Maybe you were rejected, maybe you were taken off by a servant, maybe mum loved you and you had this wonderful bond, but dad didn't love you, kind of thing. And then you go through the pivotal parts of your lifetime, but at every pivotal part you have all the emotions, not of you, but how your family felt towards you, till you get to the traumatic, horrible ending. So I have brought through some nice lifetimes from Avalon when it's been requested, you know, that I bring through a lifetime in Avalon. I have brought through nice lifetimes. So generally I'll just bring through traumatic lifetimes, and I often feel that very heavy energy that I have to clear off myself when I finish. And I just thought everybody could go into the Akashic records. Everybody could bring that volume of information. But what it boils down to is actually an authority. So I'm not clever. If you had an authority to go into the Akashic records and you could go get that much information, that's exactly what you do. It doesn't make me any more clever than anyone else, because literally I'm just the telephone. So I literally will go to the higher self. They will open up the records and it will download, and I just sit. And I actually do speech to text, but it just gets typed out. And so I have the authority to go into the Akasha records completely and fully and bring through, as long as the higher self is in agreement, I can bring through anything that is required.
The person, do you mean your higher self or the person's higher self that you're?
The person's higher self.
Yeah,
not my higher self. So I will go to so I must always have, as you know, we must always have permission to work for people. It doesn't happen. But then I found that I have the authority to go into universal knowledge. So I can bring in planetary information and information about beings and their lifetime. So the first part of a starseed reading is about your planet, what your planet is like, what your race is, or how many races of beings you have. And I'm not saying you don't have visitors on you, but some might have several different kinds of races of beings. Some will just have one. Some planets big, some planets are small. Some are into technology, some are into very the old-fashioned sacred arts of healings and things like that. So it's really interesting, and I think I might have about somewhere between 20 and 30 different planets downloaded. And so I have an authority to be able to go into universal knowledge, but I also have the authority to go into off-planet Akashic records. So I can, what I normally bring is your last lifetime, but if you felt you've had a lifetime on another planet, I could go in and check and actually bring through that lifetime on that planet as well. So, but it's an authority only, but in my ignorance, I thought everybody could do all these things, and it took me a long time to realize that we're all very specialized in what we do, and what other people do is not my authority to go and do that, but these are my authorities that I can do. And so, yes, I've been very, very blessed to be gifted that opportunity to actually be able to have these authorities. So if you had that authority, you could just go and get the same information that I do. And so there are and that's why there are different levels of what people can bring in when they read for you. So where there are some things like predictions that I don't do, and sometimes with my reading where people are allowed to ask questions, they are told don't ask for predictive information because it's not the information that I have the authority to bring through for you, and it's just an authority. I don't actually have the authority to bring it through. So it's quite fascinating. We're all open to so many different things. It just blows me away the amount of different kinds of healings you can have. I've had some really amazing healings from other people, and yet I'm a healer myself, and my healings are different to theirs. And there are people who are amazing at coaching. I know an amazing young woman who's just incredible at motivating. So her speciality is motivating people and getting them to look within themselves and to move forward and to bring the best in themselves. It's just, there's just so much out there. It's really exciting when you really start seeing what's around and how you can actually, make changes to your life. And it's
I think
an
that
ongoing
as
thing.
well, that when you're in your channel and you're the giver, so to speak, or it's coming through your conduit as yourself, Anita, and then to be Anita the human, really, that's to receive and be held, have space held for you, and that is the balance of giving and receiving as well, and I just see everything, like I want to say a sacred marriage even, within us, of balancing those energies, because, to me, balance, it's all about balance right now. Balance. And then we can use all sorts of terms to describe those dualities that we're balancing. But really, if we, we're looking to balance those energies and then have quite a clear connection really, to express whatever that is, in its most, I say, refined expression, or expanded expression, or clearest expression possible. The more that these are balanced out, then we can just kind of pretty much go directly to our source.
Oh, definitely.
And really bring that through, if that's our mission, or as you said, our authority or alignment, or
And the more you do that, the more it will come through. So the more open you are, the more they'll give you. So if you're open and you're willing to be fluid, I like this word of being fluid. But if you're more and open to what's coming through, they will give you more, because they want us to really be doing more. The more you can do, the more they're going to give you, because they really want us out there doing what we need to do. You know, this is the ultimate.
And as much as the human goes, oh yeah, bring it on, when it actually happens, it's like, slow, stop.
I'm not ready. I'm not ready yet.
Because on the earth plane, it does take us time to integrate these experiences, and it's kind of like what you said earlier. You were kind of using a bit of a different languaging, but what you're talking about lying earlier, but the way I really was thinking is like, you just simple as reading a book. You read the book, you take so much information, put it down. 6 months later, you pick it up, you read it again, and it's like, oh my God, I don't remember reading that. Yeah. You're ready for the next level of information, understanding, insight, integration, and you might have completely just bypassed that, and just because it didn't really register, it was above your head or whatever.
Didn't resonate.
Yeah, at that moment, because you weren't really ready to kind of acknowledge it or understand it. So so that's the dance. That's the dance.
The balancing dance. Yeah. And we make it sound a lot easier than what it is. It's easy to talk about it. And as I say, at the moment, I'm moving through all this fear, which I was told is not just this lifetime. This goes back. And your average human has had, say, between 400 and 500 lifetimes in the previous grand cycle. So you think about that, that's an awful lot of lifetimes. It really is a lot of lifetimes. And sometimes we're just in and out of lifetimes. And other times we have breaks. And so we have all these emotions that we have been carrying around with us, and we don't always have time to shut them, clear them, and move on. In between, we've just got to get on, move on, get into the next lifetime, and carry on doing what. For me, it's just deep fears. I don't feel it on a conscious level. I feel it's down in the heart, and it has to be shifted on. Absolutely, but it's just an amazing experience, and I have got a channeling that I would like to read that came out, which was given to me personally, but I actually did put it out. I'm not sure whether I put it out on your group, because I've belonged to so many. I gave up in the end. I got a bit fed up with putting them on. It's a slow process, but it's one that was for me, but it's for everyone. And I think it really summarizes exactly what's happening to all of us at the moment. And so I've just got it here because I feel that we're all in this place in one way. Wonderful. Do you feel that you are standing on a precipice? There is no turning back, with only space and time in front of you. You cannot see what is in front of you. You have a blindfold across your eyes, knowing that you can't turn back, as the place you came from is a place you do not want to return to. Close your eyes, reach forward, feel the hand that takes your hand, feel the warmth and feel the love. It is time to take that step forward, a step that will change your world, your perceptions, and your understandings. No one ever said this was going to be easy, but neither should the journey be so difficult you give up on finding what you are looking for. Grasp that hand, the loving hand, the one that you can feel but cannot see, the one that will support you in unseen ways. Take that leap of faith and trust, as you will find yourself in the very place you have been looking for. And to me, that really just summarizes where I think we all are at the moment. We've all come to that place. We're on the precipice, and we're on the precipice of some very exciting times to come.
Amen, sister. Amen. So wonderful. Thank you. Beautiful conversation. 2nd of March 2021.
I know. Yeah. Where's the year going? It's going too fast.
So where let people know how they can connect with you, have one of your readings or anything else you're offering.
Okay, they can connect to me personally if they want to. I'm Anita Davies. You'll find me on Facebook. The hair colour's changed a little bit from my photograph. Or I have a Facebook site, business site, which is called Crystal Clear. Now, I'm one of these people that thought I'd be very clever in the spelling, but some people say they can't find it.
Can you spell it out? Spell it out.
It's spelled KHRYSTEL, and then a second word, which is CLAIR. So I chose that because my connections to me are crystal clear. And that's why I chose it. But I thought I'd be smart and fancy, and I think I actually made it more difficult for people to find me because I spelt it a little bit odd. So it's often in the back of my mind I need to change it, but nothing's come through yet. So I just leave it guddling away, and something will come up when the timing's in alignment.
Beautiful. And so Facebook page, did you say email?
Yes, I have an email. It's patchworkfan@gmail.com.
Patchworkfan, F-A-N?
Yes,
Yep.
at gmail.com. Yeah.
Beautiful. And do you have a website?
Not yet, but I've had the offer from someone to help me do one. So I will at some stage. I haven't
At
yet.
the moment, it's just email and the Facebook page for people to connect with you.
Yes, and personally, if they just want to PM me, that's fine as well.
You take sessions in person?
My work, no, it's generally, I can if you live in Canterbury, if you really want a face-to-face session, that's fine. But it's normally for me to do one of my readings, it's a good 2 hours of channeling, and that can become a bit laborious to sit and listen to, as well as for me to channel for 2 hours for someone, because at home I can sneak off and have a cuppa in between and have a wee break.
Just explain that again. So I'll share, and then you tell me if you add in everything. So from my experience, I emailed you, I asked for the reading, then you take that, it's there, and you in your own time sit down and you get the download and you type it out. And then you
email it.
Email it back. Yeah.
And I'll always give you a day. So I'll tell you what day I'm going to do it. And if I've had a disrupted day, it might not be till 10 o'clock at night it gets emailed, but it'll always be emailed out on the day. And people are always welcome to come back and ask questions. I'm always very open to that. The Starseed reading, there's an introduction. So you can have I often will send an introduction explaining the reading if people are a little unsure about it. Some people are just very definite about it. So the introduction just goes along with the reading. I'm not sure whether I had the introduction done at the time I did your reading, but I did type out an introduction, so it either gets sent at the time of reading or beforehand. But with the other readings, people are very welcome to ask questions, and I'll answer what they need to know. And there's also an introduction with the Higher Connections one, just explaining how to ask questions so you get the best in your reading that I can possibly bring through for you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I know it's fascinating reading. I feel like I need to go back. I think I might have read out my own reading on a recorder on my voice memo or something. So, but I don't know if I've actually really sat down and listened to it now in quite a while. So I feel quite inspired to do that. It's fun. Okay, well, thank you, Anita.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Lovely to hang out and co-create this wonderful energy and conversation, and really hope that those who are tuning in, that you've enjoyed this beautiful interview, stories of awakening in these epic times on the precipice of us in this new into the unknown, what can feel like the unknown, but we are held in this broader awareness within our heart and our soul of where the potentials can unfold into. So trusting that and having lots of compassion for the one who's in the body, on the ground, on earth, doing the best that we can and just taking care of ourselves. I think that's really probably the most important, isn't it? Any other advice or anything else you'd share with people, just how to navigate these times, Anita, before we finish up?
Try to be fluid. Find like-minded people, whether it's in circles, going to spiritual fairs, coming to people like us. Find like-minded people, because we can feel very alone at the beginning of the spiritual experience. It can be a very alone feeling, especially if those who you connect with, your friends, your families, are not in the place that you're in. You can feel quite alone and quite different and separate. So to find other people who are like-minded, to join, as I say, spiritual circles, which are a really good way of actually dipping your toes in and trying out different methodologies and, using pendulums and whatever, cards, just to find where you are and to find your sense of self, because that's where I started. Small beginnings. And when you're ready and everything's in alignment, these small beginnings change, and you start seeking, excuse me, you start seeking more information. You don't need to be a practitioner either. A lot of people, when they get into the spirituality, think they need to be a practitioner, they need to be a reader, they need to be a healer, they need to be doing QHHT, for example, to be a spiritual person. You don't. Your spirituality is expressed in your creativity, in your daily working life, in your daily living life. And it is about honoring yourself and loving yourself and being fluid and enjoying that spiritual journey, no matter where it takes you, whether it means you love going hiking in forests and swimming in the sea and just lying on the ground watching clouds. It doesn't matter how you express your spirituality. Just enjoy that very special part of you and the connectivity that you have with all that surrounds you, and to just be.
Yay. Okay, we'll finish off there. Beautiful
Thank
conclusion.
you.
Thank you, Anita. Till next